We are live. How's it going, everybody? It's your guy Wardy here, and we're back at it this time with a live edition of our Big Mets update segment. Because I'm sorry, when the Mets lose a series finale against the White Sox by a final score of 9-4 in a very unfortunate fashion, as a Mets fan, with really little to no positives to take away from it, I can't warrant just doing our typical post-game show today because you guys don't have interest in that. I don't have interest in that, and I don't want to sit here the next half hour and tell you guys how this was an absolute clunker on the Mets end pretty much as soon as the ball game started there at Citi Field. So instead, we're going to be doing a live edition of our Big Mets update segment, getting into the key takeaways from today's series finale loss to the White Sox. How concerning at all is it for the New York Mets in this offense? Again, they did win 2 out of 3. They did win back-to-back series from the Dodgers and the White Sox, but what is the one commonality? The offense has still been fluctuating big time, and Juan Soto has not recorded a hit in at least his past 4 games there throughout this homestand. We're going to get into Juan Soto's hitless skid and just how underwhelming he has been, not just over the past 2 weeks, but really we're looking over the past north of a month or so. Why has Juan Soto faltered as much as he has? When can we expect him to pick it up, if at all? How concerned should we be, if at all, as Mets fans? And what we should be happy about, at least, is what's happening there in the farm in AAA Syracuse. Another day, another dollar, another big game for Ronny Mauricio, as we're going to break down what's going right for Ronny in AAA Syracuse, when he may get called up to this Mets team. Should it be warranted sooner rather than later, as the Mets, of course, are fluctuating with their offensive end? And, of course, what was not working for guys like Griffin Kane today? Why did Carlos Mendoza keep Brandon Waddell out there a little bit longer and hunt him out to dry when a lot of... What is the status of guys on Paul Blackburn and Manaea, as they are oh so close to returning to this Mets rotation? Blackburn naturally being closer than Manaea, and then we're going to wrap up the show as we always do with our latest post-game segment. So again, thank you guys so much for chiming in live on a replay. I greatly appreciate you all first chiming in, especially to our replay viewers as well, because I know a lot of you guys are going to see this after the fact, heading into the Mets off day this Thursday, and I want to hear from you guys about all the following topics that we have in the comments down below. I'm also going to do my best to interact with you guys in the live chat while getting into all of our topics. I'm going to be hitting a lot of the topics in a fairly short period of time because I got to go live in the Bleacher Report app just over 20 minutes or so from now. So again, guys, check me out right around 5:30, 5:35 range in the BR app. We're going to be doing an MLB-wide topic there. We do that every single week there in the BR app, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday there, and I'm one of your weekly hosts. So make sure to check it out. But how are we doing, everybody? I know you're not feeling too great if you're a Mets fan right now, if you enjoyed actually witnessing and watching this ball game transpire the way that I sadly did. But if there are any positives, any key takeaways to take away from this, there are at least a couple, so we might as well start with that, everybody. And I do want to shout out everyone for chiming the live show here. We got Daniel Caps, great member. Trenton, great member. How we doing? We got Rob, how we doing? Douglas, how we doing? CAG, how are you, my friend? Zach Flairton, how we doing? Ray, Juan Diaz, great member and moderator. Alvin, great member. Daniel, if I didn't say him already. Frankie, how we doing? HG, rather, how we doing? Josh going up here. We got Trenton, great member. Max, how you doing? Douglas, how you doing? Daniel Barry Sports, how you doing? Going up here even more. We got our guys in Ray. We got everybody here. Again, come on, come all. Again, thank you guys so much for chiming in for our latest Big Mets update segment. And I can't thank enough, because without today's video, this video rather is not possible today without our amazing sponsors here at BetUS that has you covered with all of your sports betting needs, folks. As you guys can see, BetUS had the line pregame today for Alonso to record at least 1 hit and for the Mets to win. Sadly, I did in fact hammer these odds at -132, and the boys just did not show up at all. Alonso had that hit, and he is now 4th all-time on the Mets RBI list there, which was great to see him do exactly that today, tying Hojo, Mr. Howard Johnson. So very encouraged by that, but not encouraged by today's defeat there. So again, guys, when it comes to odds, picks, lines, you name it, head over to betus.com.pa today. Utilize our promo code YouTube150. That way YouTube will get a 150% bonus on your first deposit, 125 on your second and your third for whatever you guys want to bet up to $2,000, whether it's sports betting or there in the casino. BetUS has you covered, but please make sure you do it responsibly for whatever you guys have interest in, and thank you so much for exactly that. Because guys, let's first start off by talking about some of the lone positives for sure from today's game. And I know a Braves fan ain't in here talking about the Mets being awful when the Atlanta Braves are where the Atlanta Braves are right now, but I digress. I know Ronald Acuna Jr. is back and he's been electric. Don't remind me, because I don't want to hear it right now. I'm a sour Mets fan at the moment after losing Game 3 against the Chicago effing White Sox. But again, there are a couple positives to take away today, and I would like to share with you what exactly those positives are, everybody. everybody, as we take a look here on the heading end for the Mets. This is how the ball game ended for them, and their lineup again leaves a lot to be desired. Lindor with an 0 for day. Juan Soto with an 0 for day, though we're going to talk about plenty here in just a second and expand more on. But Pete Alonso was certainly a positive, hitting that I believe 2-out RBI double there in the ninth inning to drive in a run. Nimmo, who had a great day at the plate. Brandon Nimmo got on base 4 times today. You love to see that there. 2 for 3 game for him with 2 runs scored and a pair of walks. Alonso again with another RBI. Love that. 4th now on the Mets leaderboard all time there in said category. Brett Beatty looked initially not great with the defense. Had an error to begin this ball game and then had a fantastic web gem there later on the ball game at third base. Mark Vientos back in the DH spot, took advantage of it, going opposite field for a 3-run ding-dong. That was Vientos' 6th home run of the year, and at the time that did cut the White Sox lead to just a couple runs. But sadly, as we entered the 6th inning, the Mets absolutely, by many, felt that they were in fact punting, and I'll get into why exactly that was. Luis Torrens, for the first time in his career, had a 3-walk game. Yes, you heard that correctly. Luis Torrens has never been walked 3 times in a Major League Baseball game up until today. Jared Young did get the start there in left field, had an 0-for after having a fantastic 2 for 3 game yesterday with a double and a multi-run home run for his first at the Major League level for the New York Mets, at least. And on the pitching end, this is where everything went to die. And this is where the negatives quickly kick in, everybody. I want to know all your thoughts, again, watching live at a replay about this, because Griffin Canning just simply didn't have it. Sometimes, again, things are just not going to go in your favor. And the same Griffin Canning who did start for the Mets when I was in attendance this past Friday, where the Mets lost in extras, his outing was done after not even 3 innings because of the rain delay, unfortunately. So Canning, I think, kind of got thrown off a little bit by that. And then today, he's in a rainy, gloomy day there at Citi Field that got shifted last minute to a day game from this past day to a night game because of the inclement weather there on the East Coast, specifically in Flushing, Queens. But Canning did not look good. He was kind of batting practice today for the White Sox and their offense, which is not ideal to ever hear that. It's very fitting, however, that in a very Metsian fashion, out of any game that we could see a guy in Griffin Canning not have his stuff, he, of course, doesn't have his stuff today against the Chicago White Sox out of all teams. Yet that was the reality. Brandon Waddell came in and did give the Mets 5 innings of work there in relief, and we appreciate that. He certainly saved the bullpen. But what was true, everybody, what was true is that as we entered the 6th inning, it felt like a prime opportunity to not keep Brandon Waddell in this ball game. The Mets are, again, only down by a pair of runs. Let's actually start to utilize this bullpen, knowing you have the off day tomorrow. But instead, Carlos Mendoza did the exact same thing he did that we saw not all that long ago, specifically against the Pittsburgh Pirates as well. And there's something I want to emphasize here. It comes down to the bats, no doubt about it. Even with the Mets scoring 4 runs today, their offense was their demise. They were 2 for 12 with runners in scoring position, absolutely horrendous. They had golden opportunity after golden opportunity and did absolutely nothing with it. They allowed the former Met pitching prospect and Mike Vassell, who was acquired by the Tampa Bay Rays of the Rule 5 draft this past offseason, and then sent over to the Chicago White Sox, go 3 shutty against this Mets team today. So with the scraps, the has-beens, and Adrian Hauser a day ago or so, and now that we see in Mr. Mike Vassell today, I want nothing to do with the White Sox of Southside, because seriously, they have been a thorn in the Mets side, and that's a problem. You never want to have in the same sentence the White Sox and being a thorn in the side of the New York Mets out of all teams. But Brandon Waddell wasn't overly sharp, but again, gave the Mets 5 innings, and they needed that inning big time there, the innings in general. So I appreciate Brandon Waddell going out there being the workhorse that he was, but again, still gave up 4 earned runs on 7 hits as a multi-inning southpaw relief / swingman type option for this Mets rotation and bullpen. But I really would have loved to initially see the Mets maybe not punt away what they had and still a reachable 2-run deficit of a ball game. It is what it is now. There's nothing we can do to go back and reverse and change it. However, I am kind of getting tired by the notion that we just need to go ahead and not care as much because we're already up a series, because that's exactly what the Mets did today. And this is now the third series finale loss the Mets have had at Citi Field this year that comes after a series victory against a bottom feeder dog you-know-what team, and that absolutely nothing to show. The Mets lost against the Miami Marlins there earlier this season at home, 5-0. I should know. I was in attendance for that game, sadly. Then they went on and lost to the Pittsburgh Pirates in that series finale, 4-0. And now they lose today 9-4 to the White Sox. I get it. You're not going to win every game. I'm not ever expecting the Mets to go 162-0, but I am expecting the Mets to have better outings like what we got today, against a depleted White Sox team. I don't care that the weather was uncomfortable for you. I don't care that you just had a game shifted from a night to a day game. You want to know why Wardy doesn't care? Wardy doesn't care because this is the same Mets team that lost the ball game, meaning the other team had to perform better. The White Sox scored 9 effing runs on the Mets today. That's inexcusable. I'm sorry. It always has and always will be, regardless of who's pitching. Can't happen. Then you look at the loss against the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates had freshly fired their manager and Derek Shelton entering that series, or right around there rather, because they had one of the worst offenses in Major League Baseball. They entered that series 28th to 30th in overall offensive numbers per Fangraphs, and the Mets still beat the Mets 4-0 because the Mets offense had nothing to show in that series finale. If we take it all the way back to the Miami Marlins 5-0 series finale loss a number of weeks ago, the same thing was true. The offense did not prevail. They got beat on the fundamentals, and they got beat on the offensive end against lesser ball clubs. I know you're not going to win every game. I completely understand that. But having said that, I expect this team to show up against lesser opponents to this degree, and this is yet again the latest example of the Mets not showing up whatsoever, and this is a continuation from pretty much the majority of this homestand. Even with the Mets winning 2 games out of 3 against the Dodgers and 2 games out of 3 against the White Sox, and those are positives in itself. Don't get it twisted, they absolutely are. But the one thing that is true is that when you look at the individual at-bats in each of these respective games, there was a lot to be desired on the offensive end. A lot to be desired. And the Mets did not hit well, with the exception of one game in this entire homestand. They did not hit well with runners in scoring position. And that has been their continued Achilles heel, their continued bugaboo, and something that, again, needs to get nipped in the you-know-what before things get worse for this Mets team. And when we talk about things getting worse for this Mets team, everybody, no better transition than to talk about the man that has the $765 million contract and $100 million in base salary this year alone, from his bonus to his salary. And that, of course, is going to be and Juan Soto. Guys, what didn't work for Juan Soto today? A lot didn't work for Juan Soto today. And let me just take you back. No, let's just not talk the past day. Let's just not talk the past 4 games where he did not record a hit. Let's talk about Juan Soto, the past 15 games of Major League Baseball he has played. To give you guys some clarity on this, Juan Soto, over his past 15 games played, which also consists of how many at-bats, in case you guys are wondering, a total of 53. Juan Soto has just 4 runs scored, 7 hits, 6 RBIs, 0 home runs, 12 walks. Again, of course, is getting on base at a ridiculous rate with the walks because he always will. 15 strikeouts. He's striking out more than he's getting on base with his walks, which is usually not the case with Soto at all. 5 stolen bases, which is nice to see, but again, that only moves the needle so much. A 132 average, a 284 on base, and a 151 slug, guys. 151 slug. Juan Soto's at a 225 average and a 749 OPS on the season. The only reason why he even has a 749 OPS is really because the on base has been carrying to a degree there, because this is beyond underwhelming. And I 100% know that this is not the end-all be-all and what we're getting in Juan Soto right now. Things will absolutely get better. There's no question about it, and I look forward to when that'll inevitably happen. But like each and every one of you Mets fans, we now find ourselves pondering, when exactly is that going to be? Because we are now 2 months into the regular season, and Juan Soto not only looks like a guy that isn't deserving of the early dollars he's getting, but he looks like a complete shell of himself. And this is not the first rodeo as a Mets fan to see a top player coming to Queens and not perform right away. Most notably, Francisco Lindor was very underwhelming in his first 2 months as a Met. As a matter of fact, Lindor was still below league average by almost 20% as a batter in his first 2 months as a Met. In comparison, Juan Soto entered today's game with still right around 110 on the WRC plus or so still over 10% above league average as a batter. But I'm sorry, you don't invest this much in a guy to be just above league average as a batter. You also do not invest in a batter to have a 7-game stretch when, mind you, Juan Soto did not have a 7-game stretch once last season of the following stat line I'm going to give you. Nor has Juan Soto had a respective stretch of 15 games this bad in his entire career. I firmly do believe that he's never been this bad, even going back to his stint when he was getting acclimated and getting adjusted with the San Diego Padres. Because when we look at the past 7 games alone, the past week at 26 at-bat sample size, Buddy only has 2 hits, 5 RBIs, which is nice to see, 4 walks, 8 strikeouts to the 4 walks. So again, horrendous plate approach, a .077 batting average, a .188 on base percentage, and a measly .115 slugging. He doesn't even have a 100 batting average, nor does he even have a 200 slugging. A 200 OPS. He's closer to 300 than he is 200. That's insane to fathom, but that's the reality, everybody, because Juan Soto is so unbelievably lost at the plate. And let's get into why exactly that is, because this is exactly what I know Mets fans were fearing to a degree, and I will tell everybody. I said this going back to the beginning of the season. I had Mets fans telling your guy Wardy here, Wardy, why are you freaking out about Juan Soto right now? He's going to get it right. I'm like, no, absolutely, and I'm not overly freaking out about him. But if we reach the end of May and he still as underwhelming as what he was to begin April, then we have to have a greater discussion. Fast forward a month plus later, everybody, we're here. We got to have this discussion. He is worse than his Padre year. I know he's worse than his Padre year. He hasn't played this bad of baseball over a 2-month stretch in his entire career. And the crazy thing is, everybody, the craziest thing of all is that Juan Soto entered the series against the New York Yankees with an OPS well over 900 in the month of May. So it has been completely a nosedive since then. Since that Yankee Stadium series, Juan Soto has been so unbelievably bad. And I see this as someone who loves Juan Soto, who thoroughly looks forward to seeing Juan Soto become and blossom the guy that he's going to be at the major league level with this Mets team. But not only is he pressing, but he is just completely lost to the plate. And here is exactly why, everybody. Let's break down why is Juan Soto not performing? Because there are multiple variables that go in hand for the lack of production. But let me just relay the following. It starts with the fact that Juan Soto's first month of the season was him smoking baseballs constantly and having bad luck in doing so. Very bad luck in doing so. BABIP to hell. Just 48 to 72 hours ago, Juan Soto had a BABIP of 250 when the league average is 300. To give you an example of just where he's at with having balls fall the way that he needs to. And that did transfer over into this latest homestand. No doubt about it. He got robbed of a hit yesterday that we know. He's been robbed of 2 grand slams over the past 10 games. No doubt about those things whatsoever. But what's also true is the at-bats that Juan Soto's having after he's BABIP to hell. What is he doing? Again, when he's trying to work counts of runners in scoring position, he is constantly topping over balls for groundouts, or he's striking out silly. And a lot of the strikeouts have been him looking. So even though you guys seen the highlights beside me, Juan Soto did bring his little shuffle back there, getting the ass to shake a little bit. But I don't really care about the Juan Soto shuffle all that much right now, when I just care about Juan Soto locking in and being the player that he's supposed to be for this Mets team. And fast forward now, 2 months of the season, he is far from it. So it's a cultivation of not only Juan Soto having some unbelievably terrible luck, and anyone that thinks that luck is not a part of this, it absolutely is. I'm going to show you guys how exactly it's been a part of luck in this one. We're going to take a look quick on Baseball Savant. And again, guys, I'm running tight on time today, so I'm going to kind of speed run this a little bit, because then we got to talk about Ronnie, what's going on with the pitching and the prospects. So I'm going to do the best I can to do that for each and every one of you. But let me show you all the following here on the numbers. Let's take a look. Let's head over here. And then let's head over here, and then let's do this, and then let's do that, and then let's do this. As you guys can see, these are Juan Soto's Baseball Savant numbers. Something to make note of when we evaluate Soto's Savant numbers are as follows. He's still in the 82nd percentile in batting run value, 72nd in base running value. We're not going to care about fielding because, again, that's not what we signed him for. 98th percentile at XWOBA with 424. 98th. Expected batting average, the same Juan Soto that's batting 225 right now has an expected batting average of just under 300. Again, the luck has not been on his side. All these numbers tell you that he is going to break out and he's going to be fine. And these numbers were not here, then I would say we have a much greater discussion on our hands, even worse than what I was initially emphasizing, because he clearly is not looking good at all. He at least has had Lady Luck on against him in the sense to suggest that once these balls start to fall, he's really going to get on a tear. Expected slugging. The same Juan Soto, who doesn't even have a 400 slugging this season, has an expected slugging of 577. Average exit velocity, 95th in Major League Baseball there at 94 miles per hour. A barrel percentage, 85th percentile, 96th in hard hit percentage. Sweet spot is way down in the 20th percentile, and that's when in direct hand with his lack of quality at bats that we've seen. 73rd percentile in bat speed, that's been down from last year. 93rd in squared up percentage, which is great. 100th in chase rate, because Buddy gets walks at an absurd rate still. We know this. 79th percentile in whip percentage. 76 in K percentage, and 98th in walk percentage. So again, when you look at these numbers, what does it tell you, Mets fans? It tells you that Juan Soto is unbelievably elite, and we know he is. We absolutely know that this is something that's going to change. And no, we're not going to stop with the unlucky stuff, because if you're the same fan that decides to push away those numbers, you then will be walking in circles trying to figure out what is going wrong with Juan Soto. This is the context behind what is going wrong with Juan Soto. He not only gets walked an absolute boatload, and in my opinion, gets walked so much so that it does hurt him at times. There are absolutely at bats where Soto appears to be looking for the walk, then trying to get a key hit, and he wants to pass baton there to Alonso, whoever is batting behind him. I completely understand that. I'm not saying you're wrong, because that is true to a degree, but it suggests that Juan Soto has been so abysmal that he absolutely has nothing to suggest that he is going to break out of this. That too is factually incorrect. We can call out both things for what they are, while still understanding that this is something that should rectify itself, hopefully at a very strong level sooner rather than later. But as I understand, Mets fans are impatient. You're especially impatient when you're investing $765 million into one player, the largest contract in North American sports history, and you're having the numbers offensively that he's had to begin the season that are very underwhelming. Again, a 225 average, a 354 on base, a 395 slug is not going to cut it for a guy a year ago who had himself a 288 average, a 419 on base, and a 569 slug for a just under 1,000 OPS. Again, this is night and day from what you expect from Juan Soto, and I 1,000% understand that. But the reason why I shed these numbers and share them with each and every one of you is to shed light on the situation as to where things are currently at, why they are at this current situation, and will they get rectified sooner rather than later. We're just gonna have to see it to believe it, folks, because Soto has really struggled this season, especially for going opposite field. Juan at his best, if you guys take a look here, and I know he pulled the baseball a lot last year, but just look at the context last year to the right of me with the hit spray chart. It really does tell you Juan Soto did a fantastic job on spreading for all fields. And in similarity to Juan Soto, it absolutely is one of the, in similarity to Pete Alonso, we know that when you are at your best, this goes in direct hand with it, spreading for all fields. And Juan Soto is not even doing nearly that at the same degree that we otherwise hope as Mets fans. And as we see here from 2024 to 2025, night and day there. Pulling baseballs ridiculously, especially those ground balls to the first base side. They have been a very common thing going on. 2023 spread the baseball there. Not as good as 2024, but it was also a walk year for Alonso. So I'm not Alonso for Soto. So I'm not shocked to see that. But Mets fans, my question to you guys is as follows. On the Juan Soto front, one, on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you right now? And secondly, do you think that Juan Soto is going to finally start to get himself in a groove as we enter the month of June? Or do you think that this is going to be the entire first half of the season at minimum, where Juan Soto is just not the guy that Mets fans are hoping that he's going to find himself being? Let's see it, everybody. And thank you so much for exactly that. Brandon, thank you. Yeah, we're out of town right now, hence the setup, why everything looks the way it does. But I appreciate you chiming in. And again, to all of our replay viewers, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Because let's go from talking about a negative to now breaking down a positive. Because if there's one positive going on in Mets land right now, everybody, it is without question Mr. Ronny Mauricio. And those were the numbers again from this past day's game. That's not what I meant to click. I always click on the wrong thing by accident. Let's talk about Ronny Mauricio, everybody, because Ronny had himself another fantastic, and I truly mean fantastic, day at the plate. Ronny Mauricio playing in one of the two doubleheader games for the Syracuse Mets at the time of this video being recorded and live right now. He went 2 for 3 today with a run scored, now up to a 571 average and a just under 1,500 OPS. And I actually apologize. Maybe he didn't have a run scored today, and maybe I was just getting a little too excited there. No worries if that's the case. Let's see. He had 2 runs scored, so I actually had him 1 shy. So I apologize for that, everybody. If you guys are wondering the highlights that you're looking at, this is a collection of all the key Ronny Mauricio hits he's had so far this season in Syracuse, but it does in fact include the 2 hits that he had today as well. So that way you guys get a good sample size of highlights that you're watching, while also seeing the highlights that actually transpired as of today. So Ronny Mauricio got the start at second base today for AAA Syracuse, and he looked fantastic. Not only did Ronny look good out of the hot corner the other day for Syracuse, but now he's getting more consistent reps at second base. So between DH, second base, third base, he is playing all over that left side of the infield, everybody. And as we talked about in a video yesterday, and I broke it down for you guys, It's not a matter of if, but when a guy like Ronny Mauricio gets the call, especially if he continues to tear off the cover off the baseball the way that he's doing it right now. One of his singles today, too, was over 100 miles per hour. It was at 106 miles per hour on the exit velocity, as a matter of fact. So, yeah, Ronny Mauricio is handling AAA pitching very well so far in his very small sample size of, I believe, 6 or 7 games to this point. But what I asked you guys yesterday, and I will ask you guys again, is Ronny Mauricio a guy you could actually see called up, especially in the first half of the season? Or is this something that you don't anticipate to happen until sometime in the second half at absolute minimum? I would love to hear from you guys in the chat about this. Jose, how we doing? I saw you on Friday during the rain delay game when you were walking by the Hiking Club. Didn't get a chance to say hello because of how hectic it was in there. No worries at all, Jose. Happy to have you chiming in. Next time you see me, though, definitely come say hi. I always appreciate that. I was in the Heineken Club. Funny enough, I was looking for someone, but I couldn't find him, so I ended up walking out. It was absolutely popping during the rain delay because obviously it was a rain delay. But going back to Ronny Mauricio, everybody, he's looked absolutely tremendous. And the big question with Ronny is, one, is he going to be able to handle MLB pitching when he gets the call up? And two, can he be an impactful player for the Mets this season? So much so that maybe he really does kind of spark something with the lineup as a whole. Because Jared Young had a big game yesterday, had nothing to show for today. You just have to wonder how long of a leash is David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza going to give Ronny at the minor league level until they're like, listen, we have to call you up now. We need to consider you because you're just playing out of your mind right now. We really do think that you can play up at the MLB level. Because there is no denying that Mr. Ronny Mauricio can play up at the MLB level. Right now, he should be in the major leagues and smoking baseballs. But the big question with Ronny Mauricio is, one, the consistency. How consistent would he be at the major league level? And secondly, is this a guy to Ronny Mauricio that he can come out and produce for this team and various infield positions outside of DH to warrant the call-up? Because with Brett Baty playing strong baseball the way that he is right now at second base, third base, and also there that we're seeing with the bat-to-ball skills, the Mets are not in necessarily a dire need to call up a guy like Ronny. But as you look at the runner and scoring position numbers mount, it is kind of crazy to say, and not that we should lean on him to be the end-all be-all, but it does feel like we are starting to enter the category of a Ronny Mauricio call-up really doesn't feel like a terrible idea as long as his defense is ready to handle it and if he and the Mets are ready to see what he can provide at the major league level. So guys, I definitely want to hear from you guys in the live chat and the comments down below. I'm going to continue to beat this drum. I feel like every day on the platform, I'm going to give you guys a new Ronny Mauricio update because again, until we see him either completely fall off with the bat where it's like, okay, it makes sense why he's there in AAA Syracuse because he's got a lot more work to do or what, I just don't understand why a guy like Ronny, in my opinion, is maybe not getting talked about enough. And I understand the clear reasons are because of small sample size, hasn't been in the MLB in over a calendar year. And when he was here, he was underwhelming in the boomer bust aspect. But what did Ronny Mauricio do so well that not every Mets prospect when called upon does well? And that's to make an immediate impact when you're called up to the club. Yes, he died off towards the end of his stint in 2023, but he made it known that he was here to have an impact right away. Well, just like Luis Angel Acuna last year as he was called up that we saw for Francisco Lindor, who went down with injury towards the end of the 2024 season. I love players that get called up to the show, especially not only at the major league level, but in a big market like the New York Mets and Flushing, Queens, and have the immediate impact that they do. Ronny did that in 2023, as did Luis Angel Acuna, and both of which have been one of the more productive players, especially Acuna, obviously, between the two, when making things happen on a game-by-game basis. He might not be completely special every single time out there, but he's likely to make a difference, whether it's that with his pinch running ability, defensive ability, or his at-bat to ball skills. Now, in the case of Ronny Mauricio, I do think he falls in the category of a guy who can really impact this team now because he hits the ball harder than basically anyone else in the minor leagues, with the exception of guys like Jesus Baez and Ryan Clifford. Ronny Mauricio would be already one of the hardest hitters at the major league level should he get the call up this season. So that is what I'll leave you with on the Ronny Mauricio front, everybody. Let me know in the chat and the comments down below. How do you feel about Ronny, who again had himself the start today at second base? Again, you can put him at second, you can put him at third, put him at DH. With Jesse Winker still out with his oblique strain, this is now time for the Mets to take advantage of that. And honestly, why not even consider giving Ronny Mauricio a look against the Colorado Rockies this weekend and just go on from there? Jose Oscar, who was DFA'd by the Mets 72 hours ago, has officially elected for agency, as was the case with Jesus Cabrera yesterday. Cabrera signed with the Chicago Cubs since then because the Mets like Jose Castillo, the towering southpaw, as a reliever option in their bullpen. And now Jose Azcar has elected for agency because he's not going back down to AAA Syracuse. Azcar, thank you so much for your service, same thing with Cabrera, but all the more reason as to why I want to see a guy like Ronny Mauricio called up at the major league level. But guys, now staying on the topic of the Mets, let's now get into a little bit more here on the farm, because Wardy does have a quick farm report for you all before we get into our final topic today, which is on the pitching front. And then I got to get the heck out of here because I got to start my live show for the Bleacher Report app that I'm a little behind on. So shout out to my friends at BR. Check me out again in the Bleacher Report app, everybody, every single week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They're anywhere from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern in that range each of those days. Be on the lookout. And also, guys, to my members, I have an announcement, everybody, to my members. We'll be live tomorrow for a members-only live stream. Repeat, members-only live stream beginning 7:30 p.m. Eastern here on the WardyNYM platform. Again, that is for only my active members. So if you guys are one of the 200 members in the chat watching this or on replay, it is your time to shine. If you guys got specific comments, questions, concerns for your guy Wardy, we're going to have as much of a one-on-one interaction as possible by doing a full Q&A segment. 7:30 will be anywhere from a half hour to an hour because I want to catch the majority of the Knicks game. Even if they get kicked out of the playoffs tomorrow, break my heart, I want to see it in person because I haven't seen any of the games too live while they happen because they've been in direct line with the Mets games. But finally, the Mets and the Knicks don't align on a game because the Mets have an off day tomorrow. So again, 7:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, this Thursday, members only Q&A segment with your guy Wardy. Be there or be square, baby. Hope to see you guys there. Let's see. I don't hear about it. That's why I was asking. Daniel, love to see it. Happy to have you in here. Mendoza hold players accountable. He does hold players accountable. I think a great way to show that Mendoza has held players accountable has been by discussing what's happening with last year, because the Mets went from being the worst team in Major League Baseball in the first 2 months to, since then, the past calendar year, over the past 162 games, the Mets have had more victories than any other team in Major League Baseball. More than the Dodgers, more than the Phillies, more than the Braves, more than everybody and your mother. So, yes, he does hold players accountable, but what happens in those closed-door discussions, I can't necessarily say that I know off the top of my hand, or the back of my hand, rather, because that is between he, himself, and the player. Guys, now let's get on to talking about a little bit more on the prospect end, as I just alluded to, because when we looked this past night on the prospect end, here were all the notables to share with you guys. Here are just all the ones I really want to break down in a simple noted form. Beginning there that we see in Port St. Lucie, everybody, we would see the St. Lucie Mets, Arasana at pitcher, go 5 shutty, 0 earned runs, 10 strikeouts. Buddy was an absolute stud. Love to see that. I'm encouraged to watch more of him this year there in the minor leagues. Trey Snyder, 1 for 4 with a walk. We saw, Service there goes 0 for 0, but with 4 walks and a strikeout. So he got on base all 4 times. And high A with the Brooklyn Cyclones yesterday. Gurdon won 4.2 innings of 0 earned run ball and 8 strikeouts. Brian Matoyer there won 2 innings there of relief, 0 earned runs and 2 strikeouts. And Boston Barrow, another big game for Boston Barrow, who we love on the platform. I'm of a 2 for 3 game with a double. And in AA, because there were no AAA Syracuse games yesterday, because I'm going to recap them in a second right now. Jet Williams, Jet the Met there leading off, 1 for 3 with a walk, 2 stolen bags. He's looked great all year there for the Rumble Ponies. And Nick Morabito's really starting to pick it up as well. He and Boston Barrow, respectively. I love to see that. Nick Morabito was the Mets minor league player of the year last year, goes 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs and 2 stolen bags. Not 1, but 2. Kevin Parada, 1 for 4 with a home run, gets that batting average up to right around $160. Not ideal. Alex Ramirez, 1 for 3 with a walk, 2 stolen bases, and a double. And Irving Cota there, 5 innings of 1 hit, 0 earned run, 5 strikeout baseball. So that's what you guys need to know there from the minor leagues on that front. Your thoughts on Marky V's sick himself. Alvin, I don't know what you just said here. Your thoughts, Marky V, sick himself, myself. I don't know what you just said. I have no clue what you just said, Alvin. I love you to death. You're a great member. No clue. Thank you so much for the donation. Once you expand as to what you meant there with Vientos, I will gladly oblige and answer that for you. Final thing here with the Rumble Ponies. Again, they did in fact, the Cyclone. Oh, third time's a charm, Morty. Let's get together. Syracuse Mets. There we go. Bang! They won 3-2 against the Cubs in one of their 2 games of the doubleheader today. And the notables were Ronny Mauricio that we talked about. Also, Hayden Senger had a 2 for 3 game with an RBI. And Joey Meneses has 21st double of the year. And Paul Blackburn, that we're going to talk about in a second, had himself a rock-solid outing. Grant Hartwig, fine as well. And their other game here, they're currently winning 4-2 in the bottom of the 7th. And offensively, the notables in this matchup has been Donovan Walton hitting his 7th home run of the year. And pitching-wise, Noah McClain going 5.1 6.1 innings of 4 hit, 2 earned run, 2 walk, 5 strikeout baseball. Yet another outing where Nolan McLean, everybody, does not give up more than 2 earned runs. I understand he wasn't overly dominant, but we'll take that. Also, we saw Felipe De La Cruz is currently pitching with runners at second and third, 2 outs. Hopefully gets out of that jam. De La Cruz is a southpaw option that I like a lot for the Mets to consider potentially for their bullpen this year. That's why they rushed it up quickly from AA to AAA after he dominated to a sub-2 ERA. What an absurd 20 strikeouts to 3 walk ratio there with the Rumble Ponies this year. He's a starter and a reliever. The Mets are utilizing more as a lefty specialist type reliever, and we'll see if he can get out of this jam and said matchup. But let's talk about Paul Blackburn, everybody, because that is on to our final topics of discussion here that I had to get into. Let's see here earlier, Alvin, let's see if you followed up with what I said as to what you were saying with Mark Vientos there, and I do got to run in just a hot second, everybody. So before I do, let's talk about the key updates on the pitching end. The pitching end updates are as follows, everybody. And hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already for our latest Big Mets update segment. Greatly appreciate it, and I always do appreciate you guys chiming in live in a replay. Thank you kindly for that. Final rehab start of the year goes 6.1 innings of 4 hit, 2 earned run, 2 walk, 4 strikeout baseball, has a 2.7 ERA for Syracuse this year. Paul Blackburn is likely done now with his rehab stints after giving the full sample size the Mets were looking for, went up to 84 pitches as well. So he's pretty much ramped up and ready to go. Expect Paul Blackburn utilized as a reliever or a starter, likely the next turn in the order for the Mets. So we'll just have to wait word to see what Carlos Mendoza comes out with, either on the Mets off day tomorrow or certainly to begin the series at some point that Friday there against the Colorado Rockies, which begins 7:10 p.m. Eastern. Outside that, we know that Sean Manaea this Thursday on the Mets off day will in fact be throwing a live bullpen. So very encouraged to see that as well for Sean Manaea, the Samoan Southpaw, finally gained something going here. I know everyone forgot about Paul Blackburn. You're not the only one. He will be an innings eater for us. And after a day like Griffin Kennedy not having his sharpest stuff and Tyler McGill we know has fluctuated, it's important for the Mets to have as many healthy arms as possible. So I'm never going to complain about that. But shout out again to Paul Blackburn. What an absolute beast he was for his latest rehab outing. And also shout out to Sean Manaea, who will officially have his first live bullpen tomorrow. And something make note of that live bullpen is that Jose Siri will be one of the batters in said bullpen. So it's going to be encouraging signs for both Manaea, Jose Siri as they work their way back from injury. We saw Frankie Montas pitch 1.2 innings in Brooklyn a couple of days ago. Expect him to have another rehab outing either tomorrow or heading into the weekend. After Sean Manaea's bullpen this Thursday, as long as it goes well, he will officially begin a rehab stint more than likely, and that I'd imagine will either happen over the weekend or sometime early next week. So again, very encouraging signs on the pitching front, but sadly, pitching is not a sad thing, but pitching is not the Mets' demise right now, everybody. Their offense is their demise. An offense that ranks top 10 in Major League Baseball per Fangraphs and WAR and weighted runs created plus still is not clutching up nearly as well as they should with runners in scoring position. Alvin, thank you so much for the $5 holla. Alvin says, sorry about that. I'm trying to say that I'm sick of Mark Vientos because he strikes out runners in scoring position. Your thoughts on his performance? Okay, I understand. I'll say this. For all the times that you want to rag at Mark Vientos, today's not the day to do so. Can't do that when Buddy was the lone help on the offensive end for this team, leading to that opposite field 3-run blast that hit off the Cadillac Club there that we saw in right field. Vientos, I understand, has definitely been up and down with his offensive production this year. So has been the case with his defense, but he's not going anywhere, and we have to try to rally around him the way that we try to rally around this Mets team in general, because Mark does have a lot of upside. I agree he has not fared too well with runners in scoring position, but at the same time, the counter is just how many batters this year, with the exception of Pete Alonso and Lindor, and Lindor is even a good exception because he is that bad well with runners in scoring position this year. How many Mets batters this year have really hit well with runners in scoring position? The answer to that is very few, and they are in very limited sample sizes, mind you, as well. So we're going to talk plenty more on the Mets runner in scoring position struggles should they continue. I hope they don't, but should they continue, we of course will have those further discussions. And everybody else chime in the chat. I know a lot of you guys are happy about Nolan McLean, as am I. I really am excited to see what he could potentially do. I do believe, Keto, as you alluded to, that he is the best of the group there between himself, Sprode, and Ton. I think in not only stuff, but how he could potentially play up at the major league level. So we'll have to see what happens on that front for sure. Here's a question, Warriors, says Brandon, that I'm going to get out of here. How do I stay positive as a sports fan when literally all I've known is failure? Mets and Knicks both make the conference finals and fall on their face. It feels like stabs. I know it feels like stabs, Brandon, but if there's any solace to this, this is the same Knicks team that hasn't made the Eastern Conference Finals in roughly 30 effing years. And this is the same Mets team that for the first time in pretty much your entire lifetime is going to be a consistent playoff performer every single year. That's encouraging. The Mets and the Knicks are on the up and up. There's no reason to kind of fall flat on your face now just because they're falling short of winning the whole thing. And you have to realize there are so many fan bases out there for major sports teams in baseball, football, basketball, you name it, that go their entire lifetimes not even witnessing a championship, let alone any deep playoff run. So be grateful that both our respective New York teams are in position to have continued success. Otherwise, I would tell you to jump ship now because there's no reason to get involved. If this was the Walpod Mets, I'd tell you, what are you waiting for, buddy? Go elsewhere. You're wasting your time here. That is not the case with Steve Cohen, nor is that the case with Leon Rosen. Give him credit where credit's due. Mr. Dolan there for the Knicks. You might not love James Dolan, but I'm telling you right now, he's done a fantastic job on keeping his mitts out of what the New York Knicks are doing, and to an extent, the New York Rangers as well. But guys, that is going to do it for our live show. Again, thank you all so much for watching live and a replay. I really appreciate it. That's going to conclude our latest Big Mets update segment. So please let us know all your key takeaways in the comments down below. Shout out to our amazing sponsors as always at BetUS and SeatGeek. And I will see you all with some form of content either sometime tomorrow or at absolute latest